All right. Thank you guys for being here again on another episode of the Consistency Corner podcast. I'm really excited to welcome Cara Steinmann to the show today, and we're going to dive in and talk a lot about networking and ways to use LinkedIn without posting tons of content, which, if you know me, I'm all about simplifying ways to not have to pump out content, make our content work harder for us, and we talk a lot on this podcast about top of funnel and the attract strategy because content in and of itself can't always do the job. And so I'm really excited to learn some best practices from her around attracting new eyes on your business using some different platforms. So Carol, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show. We were just chatting before we hit record about how we connected, and it was online somehow. I don't even know. I don't even know, but I know when you applied to be a guest on the podcast and I saw that you speak to successful LinkedIn marketing, I was like, people need to have conversations around this. I think LinkedIn is like this little known secret that a lot of us could be using more effectively, right?
It's definitely gotten bigger in the last few years, and it's changing always, right? But it's sort of a golden nugget out there that people aren't leveraging, and they could easily.
Yes, for sure. Well, you're the founder of the Ravel Collective and host of Ravel Radio, and you serve female service-based entrepreneurs to help them build strategic networks. And those are the things that really lead to referrals and collaboration and visibility and fun. And that part I 110% agree with. Like this past summer when I was feeling bored and burnt out in my business, I was like, well, what would energize me? Spending more time and connecting with my network. And that was when I decided I'm going to layer in a second podcast because it gives me an opportunity to have more conversations and connect more with my network. So I totally agree with you that that is a great way to infuse fun in your business. And you work with founders to connect them and grow through authentic connection strategies and private membership communities. So share a little bit more. Tell us about what you do and how you got to where you are today in your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat with you today. So I think it's kind of hard to say what I do, but I think I've nailed it down to I solve problems for myself by building online communities that help other women solve the same problem. I solve problems and I want to do it with other people because it's really hard to be in a silo as a solopreneur, or with a small team. And we really need each other. I think we can back each other up. Women in collaboration are really, really powerful. And especially when there is so much content saturation and there's so much noise out there, a referral, a recommendation is so powerful and it can get someone's attention in a way that maybe 100 social posts won't.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so true. And it's work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
So putting some time into those relationships and that network can get you more over time. And I think when we can kind of get into this, but with networking in general, it's like you're planting seeds and then we've got to water them. So that's a question that I had when we talk about this of how do you not get overwhelmed with networking?
It's you have to dispel the mistaken belief that it's a numbers game because it's not.
Okay.
So Ravel is based loosely on my relationship with my biz bestie. So we've been friends for 30 years. We happen to both be content writers, go into marketing. We worked in similar fields and we referred one another quite often. But we also really like each other and we would text and we would share stories about our clients and we would we were biz besties. And so because we were in a strategic position to refer one another and we really liked one another and we knew each other's work really well, we could refer one another often. She attributes 80% of her revenue in the past years to introductions I made for her. So when I got to thinking about why that works so well and why that's so easy when other marketing tactics feel more difficult, it's because we knew each other and we liked each other and there was no competition there. We didn't feel like we were competitors, even though we did similar work, because we could see the differences in how we work and who we enjoy working with and, what our expertise is. And so I built Ravel I was like, I wonder if we could scale this. What if we got a bunch of women who share all the same kind of core values and are really good people in this room, and we all didn't treat each other like competition, and we all got to know each other, and we all learned what we did really well. And because of the way that the because the way the container is structured, Ravel, it focuses more on the people. The business is a byproduct. Like, we are entrepreneurs, we're gonna talk about our business. But we have channels like one called Ravel Travel and one called ADHD All Day for those of us who are a little quirky. And so we're talking about our lives and who we are as people so that we get to know each other and we can identify the 4, 5, 6 ideal referral partners that we want to really prioritize staying in touch with, which becomes easy if you like someone.
Yeah, yeah. So being that Ravel is a digital platform, and I think a lot of us have been leaning into digital networking and online communities, do you find that it's like hard to make those personal connections across the screen? Or what are some tools maybe that make it easier?
I feel like it's really easy. It just takes one person to be willing to be vulnerable and a safe space. I think the space itself is really important. It's Ravel's application based. And I only let people in who I believe share my core values. And when I seeded the community with the first 10, 15, 20 people, I was really strategic about who I invited. And I made sure that they shared my core values. And birds of a feather flock together. So who else came after that, who got referred by them, they happened to probably be a really great fit as well.
Yes. First of all, I love that you said it starts with vulnerability. And I have found in the communities that I'm involved in, and I'm in several memberships and online groups and whatnot, but the times that I have most made an impact and a connection with another person are when I ask a question. And often, like, we think like, I don't feel like, we feel imposter syndrome, and I don't know if I have anything to contribute to this, and I don't know what to say. But by like being willing to ask a question, it gets conversation going. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the worst thing we can do is come into a community and be like, here's my offer, everybody. Ooh, please don't do that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I went to a networking lunch with like local businesses, and they had you do the like around the room, introduce yourself, and the like scripted, memorized pitch. I was like, oh my God,
please don't give me your elevator pitch. Tell me if you're a dog person. Or like, are you married? Are you divorced? Like, tell me about you.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that people miss when they're networking. I think they come into a room or a community and they are looking to sell. We're not looking to sell. We're not looking to buy. In Ravel, we are making connections because we are going to refer people we like. Which means it's not the 150 women in the community that I'm trying to sell to. It's potentially the 150 people each of those people knows. It's the exponential effect. So when you come into a community and you're vulnerable, you say things like, hey, I've got this client. I'm not sure how to handle this situation. Has you experienced anything like this? You wouldn't believe the support and the response we get. And it's the support. We want to have each other's backs. And when you like somebody, you want to have their back.
Yeah.
And having it not on Facebook, I very strategically did not put this community on Facebook because the decentralized platforms on like Circle or Mighty Networks. So we have a Circle platform that it kind of functions as a library at this point, like a resource library. Most of the conversations happen in our Slack channels. But when you're on Facebook, or LinkedIn for that matter, I mean, it's just difficult to go from business or like on Facebook, your aunt's arguing with your uncle in the main feed about politics, and then you're supposed to hop into some group and be all vulnerable next sec. I don't switch gears that quick. I don't know about you. But when you're in a different container that you know is private, nobody's selling your information, and you know the people in there have been handpicked, it's really easy to be vulnerable. And that really connects you with somebody, and then you have something to work on.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so true. So it's definitely not like you said this a few minutes ago, it's not a numbers game. It's not more is better. How many followers can I get? How many connections can I get? It's quality over quantity. And you said something about defining your core values. And I think that's a really important thing that we talk a lot about in your branding. But I love that you connected that to aligning with a network that shares those values.
Yeah. Well, think about it too. If you want your ideal clients, if you're a service entrepreneur and you want ideal clients that are going to stay with you forever so you don't have to be marketing your butt off forever, you want clients that share your core values. You want connection is one of my core values, and my temperament is really open and extroverted. So I don't prioritize things like structure and consistency, and not that I don't appreciate consistency, but I'm not highly conscientious. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't, clients who are people who really structured, people who need a list and a plan and a start and an end date, and they don't want to deviate, they're not going to enjoy working with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably don't want to network with people who are like that necessarily, because they're going to attract the kinds of clients who are going to be like that. Caveat to that would be, if you have a very open relationship with that person and you know you're like, if you are self-aware enough to know you're like that, you can be very clear and say, hey, I'm not like that, but you're like that. When you run into people who are not an ideal for client for you, you can refer them to me. As long as everybody's
Yes.
self-aware enough to understand that not every client is ideal, then they can refer those clients to people who do what they do for different types of people.
Yes. Self-awareness. That is so incredibly true. And I was having a conversation with uh someone in my network the other day about ideal clients, and talking about like, who is your ideal client, and who do you want to help, and who do you want to attract, and who do you want to repel, and
Yes.
being able to say that, like, not all business is good business. For your own energy, and giving energy to your existing clients who are already, excited to work with you, taking on a non-ideal client is not good for your business.
Yeah, it's not good for your mental health either.
Right. But it doesn't mean that there's not somebody out there that can help that person.
That is probably somebody's ideal client. Like,
Yes.
there's no such thing as competition. I get so excited when I see somebody who does something similar to what I do. I'm friends with tons of other community builders, because
Mm-hmm.
not everybody's a great fit for Ravel,
Mm-hmm.
but they might be a great fit for that other community.
So I'm curious, being that you do network with people that do similar projects and offers to you, how do you combat the comparisonitis or the imposter syndrome?
Self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all comes back to self-awareness. There is no way, you're never going to learn everything there is to know about yourself in your whole entire lifetime. Just keep trying, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is nobody in the world who is coming to the table with the same core values, temperament, like operating preferences, background, expertise, like upbringing, regional, cultural, you know, background. There's so many different aspects of who we are as a person that affect the way we do business and the way we operate and the kinds of clients we enjoy working with.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's going to be differences there.
Yeah.
And if you're aware of that and you don't buy into the scarcity BS, then you know that there's plenty of business to go around for everybody, and we can do this in a way that makes business fun and enjoyable, and we don't have to be struggling all the time and stressing.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, we're talking about using some other platforms outside of traditional Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. And I love that. I love the idea of going to a private platform and really creating that community there, because it doesn't get lost in the noise. Any tips that you have for someone on finding that right community? Like, I almost feel like it's like dating. Of like, how
Yeah.
many dates do you have to go on before you find the one?
Well, I think there are probably there's several right communities. I'm a member of a bunch of different communities because there's something I'm getting out of each of them that I need. And nothing's a one-stop shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I don't post very often because I don't enjoy it and it's a lot of work, but I am on there connecting with people all the time because everybody's there. That is a
Mm-hmm.
big container where people, and it unfortunately has an algorithm, so it's more difficult to control where your content gets seen on there and how often and all that stuff. But there's no reason you can't go on there and directly connect with somebody that you want to connect with. It is such an easy place to connect with people. But I would say, to answer your question, network with people, ask questions. If I was looking for answers to that question, I would go in Ravel and say, hey, I'm looking for a space where I can have this kind of experience. Does anybody know of any other communities I can look at?
Mm-hmm.
You can ask on LinkedIn too, but the algorithm might not let you get seen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about that algorithm, because I know with Instagram, what I teach my clients, because that's my main platform, is that, like, who cares about the algorithm? Like, put the content out there. The right people are going to find it and consume it when you've connected with them from another area in the world.
Yeah.
But it can be so frustrating in the beginning when you're like, I'm putting things out there and I'm hearing crickets. Is there any advice that you have in terms of like, I don't want to say the right way, but a best practice for connecting on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's the frustration is one of the reasons I don't post a lot. I don't like putting, it just sets you up to feel crappy, like nobody cares about your content. And I don't like that feeling, so I just don't want to do it. It's not that much fun for me. And I don't want to obsess over the algorithm and try to make it perfect. Like, I think we spend way too much time, especially as women, trying to make it perfect and make it look so good and all this stuff. I would say spend more time in the comments. I would say cull your connections. Get rid of anybody you don't want to be, get rid of anybody you wouldn't want to have a cup of coffee with.
Yeah.
And then your feed is a lot cleaner. And when you go into your feed and you spend some time, you can actually look at what's happening on there, spend a few minutes and comment. You can comment and get in front of other people's audiences that way and build relationships. It's sort of like commenting is not, people don't do enough of it.
Yeah.
And it opens up the algorithm for the other person. So it builds reciprocity at the same time.
Yeah. And the comments, you know, I think we're quick to tap the like button or hit the thumbs up or like.
That's a cop out. That's too easy.
Right.
But it has to be authentic. Say something if it is important to you. Follow the hashtags. Search for terms that you're interested in.
Yeah.
Follow people who care about the same things you care about outside of business, because people they're getting the hang of it. They're starting to post things about, you know, outside of business stuff, mental health, you know, personal development. I love that kind of stuff. But also comment on the comments is a really great way. If you see somebody who says something interesting, comment on that and tell them, you're right on, man. I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
They will come check you out.
Yes.
Who is this person I don't know commenting on my comment?
Yeah. So one of my favorite ways to connect with people online is if I hear a podcast guest that I really resonate with them, I will go and send them a message and say, thank you for speaking on such and such podcast. I loved what you had to say. Like, that's it. And
that is like my number one secret to getting connected. Yes. And it has to be authentic. You can't just be like, oh, I think I want to connect with that person. What's a podcast they were on? Yes. Listen to things that interest you, like be curious. And in fact, there's a gal who lives about 10 minutes from me, and I can't remember what podcast I heard her on, but she was talking about marketing on some podcast. And I was like, oh, she's pretty interesting. She's cool. And then she said she lived in Lincoln, California, which is about 10 minutes from me. And I was like, no way. Yeah. And so I messaged her on LinkedIn. I was like, dude, we're neighbors. We need to connect just because we're neighbors. And we're really good friends now. We might go to New York in a couple of months together.
Yes.
And like, she's in one of my mastermind communities. It's just, you just never know where that connection's going to go. It doesn't have to necessarily be like, not everyone's a winner, but some of them are really good.
Yeah. And it's like, when we think about that, the power of the internet, that then when we do start to get frustrated with the algorithms or the content drain or the frustration, be like, but there is some really great possibilities. And so just reminding ourselves of those possibilities. And
I think changing the way we think about it, like LinkedIn is a container online, right? And there's a lot of people in there. And you can go at it with the idea that you're going to create content and you're going to put it out there and draw attention to yourself. Or you can decide who you want to connect with and just pop right into them without, like, you don't need everybody's attention. You just need a few of the right people's attention, and you can just talk directly to them. Yeah. As long as you're not being weird about it.
Yeah. That is really, I think, a powerful thing. And a friend of mine who's a director of marketing and does similar to work that I do, but like she serves people in the wealth management space. Yeah. And so she and I were having a conversation about, you know, I really enjoy serving, being that I have a retail background, I really enjoy serving service providers who serve retailers. And she's like, that's super niche, but once you get into that niche, like the network,
they all know each other.
Right. The network is going to help you grow. And then you become this sought after person. And to your point, like you have a business bestie that is now like referring you all over the place.
Yeah, and it's not, there won't maybe be a ton of people who are your biz besties. That's the whole point. There's just a handful of them. And they might, as you grow, as you become more self aware and learn more about yourself and your business adjusts itself to that, and your network might shift a little bit. But there's going to be a few people who really are in a good position to refer you and want to.
Yeah. So that's something that you said about as your network shifts a little bit and you grow and evolve. I think as we grow and evolve, we think about people that maybe we were tight with or we networked a lot with previously. How do you maintain those relationships from like a time perspective? Because you don't have time to have coffee with every single person in your network. You don't have time to follow up with them. Or is that something that we should even just like let go of the expectation to maintain those relationships once we've made them?
I think we have to just kind of throw it out to the universe a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
let go of the idea that we're going to keep in touch with everybody.
Yeah.
So Robin Dunbar is a social scientist, and he coined Dunbar's number, and it's 150, and that's
Mm-hmm.
about as many people as you can reasonably stay connected with. You can recognize thousands of faces, but you're not going to know more than 150 people. And
Mm-hmm.
within that, you're only going to have like the center of this circle is one or two people who are really really tight with you, like your husband or your partner or your best bestie, and then there's your family, and then there's your extended network. But for our purposes in networking, there's maybe 10 or 15 people who you're going to know really really well in this networking capacity, and you might fall off with some of them. They might move away, they might change their business, they might go get a job. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what happens in Ravel sometimes. Somebody will need to go get a job and they're not, in a position to refer as much as they were when they were networking with the same kinds of people. But somebody else comes in who
Mm-hmm.
is. And it just shifts. People's lives change. It's not
Yeah.
going to just stay static. And you just kind of got to let it be what it is.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, and I think this is something that like I've taught my child about like friendship is some people come in your life for a season, some people come in for your life for a reason,
Yeah.
and some people, very few people come into your life for a lifetime, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And
That's
even if
okay.
even if we don't stay super connected with somebody, it doesn't mean we care about them less.
Yeah.
And you might still go back to that person 10 years later and refer them or follow up with them because now you have a need for what they do and you remember that
Yeah.
because you built that initial relationship.
The nature of our relationships change.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal. When I think about my relationship with my husband, we've known each other since high school. We graduated in the same class. Our relationship has gone through so many different iterations. Even in
Mm-hmm.
the 18 years we've been married, it shifts, it changes. We grow as people, and hopefully we grow together, but not everybody's you're not meant to be super tight with that many people.
Yeah.
If you want to be vulnerable and you want to have authentic, deep, connected relationships, which I think is kind of the point.
Yeah. Going back to LinkedIn, I was just thinking about what you said about being in the comments. And I'd love to hear your take on the difference between the comments and the inbox in LinkedIn and how you kind of handle those two.
Well, I think the comments is for people who aren't connected yet necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
or to support people who you want, other people to see their comments. Anytime I see somebody who's in Ravel, I want to support them, right? They're part of my intimate community. I
Mm-hmm.
want to support them. I will comment, I will like. If it makes sense for my audience, I'll repost it. Sometimes if it doesn't make sense for my audience and I want to support them, I'll repost it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just me being a supportive community member. But the inbox is where you go to make plans or talk one to one with someone, or you can create a mini container within that. You can, start a chat with a few different people and talk about something in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the inbox gets a bad rap because of Sales Navigator, because of InMail, because you do get a lot of spam in the inbox. And so just to be mindful of that also, that if you want to message somebody, like maybe don't start with the inbox, especially if it's cold. Start with the comments. Build trust in a comment conversation,
I
right?
think it depends on who you're connecting with. If it's
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's really kind of high profile and they don't have a lot of time, and you know that they're going to be like real skeptical of connecting with just anybody, I would
Mm-hmm.
definitely start with the comments. Make your face visible. There's the mere exposure effect, is this psychological principle where when we come across something, anything, a person, an object, an idea, for the first time, we're we're a little skeptical. We're like, I don't know if this is safe. I don't know if I like it.
Mhm.
The more times you are in front of someone, the more they will become preferential. They will start to prefer you. So all you have to do is show up again and again, show your face, and they will be like, once you do show up in their inbox, once you do decide this person knows me well enough, we've had enough back and forth in the comments to have them recognize me, then you connect, and you always add a note when you connect, because that's just a wasted opportunity and it's lazy. Add a note and say, hey, we've been going back and forth. I love your content. I think it'd be, we have this in common or whatever. Like, let's connect. And you're not a stranger then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, okay, thinking about the algorithm, is there any tips that you have for making the most of your time on LinkedIn? Because I think a lot of people they're hearing us talk about the connection and the comments and the messages, and it's like, I don't have all day to sit on LinkedIn. Like, how much time are you spending making comments and sharing content and reposting? Like, how much time does that take?
I don't know, 5-10 minutes maybe a day. I don't spend a lot of time on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I go other places where I want to spend time, because
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, sometimes it's not very much fun. You can make it fun if you curate your container.
Mm-hmm.
I I used to, well, I actually need to do it again because I had thousands of connections and I wanted to start using, this was a while back, I wanted to start using LinkedIn more. And I got on and it was just overwhelming. Old bosses, old, connections that don't make sense to my current business. Like, I'm there to connect with people around business, right? I don't need my friend from high school who lives in Portugal and, is an esthetician or whatever, unless we're
Mm-hmm.
friends. That's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
And so get rid of everybody you wouldn't want to have a conversation with, because that's what's coming through your feed is
Mm-hmm.
they're starting a conversation in your feed. And if you
Mm-hmm.
think about it as just conversations instead of posts,
Mm-hmm.
then you can stop thinking, then you can get your head wrapped around the idea that you don't always have to start the conversation. You
Mm-hmm.
can just jump. That is a post, that is a conversation somebody started. Those comments are responses in the conversation. Jump into
Mm-hmm.
the conversations that look interesting to you and ignore the ones that don't. But if you
Yeah.
curate your feed that way and it's only got things that are interesting to you in it, it's easier to want to spend time there.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that you have to know your own energy to know, like, when is consuming content or jumping in and having conversations, when is that energizing to me? Is it something that
Mm-hmm.
you like to do first thing in the day to get your creative juices flowing? Is it something that, like, you maybe do on your lunch break that you have more community and connection? Is it something that you like to wrap your day with? Like,
Yeah.
I think everybody's going to be different, but you got to know what works for you.
And I use LinkedIn mostly as a space to just connect directly with people that like you said, I listen to podcasts, I read books. When I think somebody just comes out with a new book and they look like maybe they're not Oprah level successful, and I might be able to get connected with them, and I want to just tell them how awesome their book was and that it really affected me.
Mm-hmm.
I think not making it about like having an agenda the whole time, just be curious and want to connect with people who you'd want to be surrounded by,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes. And that's where that referral network comes from, because you're not going out and saying, like, I'm going to go to LinkedIn and look for ideal clients today.
No, don't go to LinkedIn and look for clients.
I'm going to go look for community.
Yeah, I'm going to look for people. I mean, yes, if you want to put it in business context, we're looking for people who might be connected to our ideal clients.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean they can't be awesome people we'd want to hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to Mexico with 5 other women in the Ravel Collective in November. 3 of them I haven't even met yet.
Yeah.
But they happen to be in my community. We have a lot in common. We love to travel, and we want to go do end of year business planning together.
Mm-hmm.
So we're meeting up in Mexico to do it.
Yes.
I mean, those are referral relationships. These women have referred people to Ravel.
Yeah. And
Doesn't mean I can't have Margarita Mastermind with them.
Yes, Margarita Mastermind. Absolutely. That sounds amazing.
Well, you're welcome to join us.
Yes. Well, Cara, these were really great tips. And I just think good ways to shift our thinking around networking, around social media, around the platforms. And before we wrap up, I have a couple questions, just like get to know you questions that I always ask all of our guests. And the first one, it's so funny because we've already talked so much about values and how incredibly important they are in building your ideal community. So I'd love to know what's one of your brand values and how did you land on that?
My 3 core values are connection, authenticity, and freedom.
Yeah.
And the biggest factor in landing on those was looking at my life history and looking at where was I really happy, where was I proud of myself, where did things go wrong and why, and what core values were being offended at that point.
Yeah.
When the last time I was really mad at somebody, why was that? What core value would that have been? What would have been at play there?
That's an interesting way to think about values that I haven't used before, of like, if somebody really hurt me, what value was violated and why was I so hurt?
It becomes so obvious when we look at it from that perspective. As drivers, like core values kind of, I hate the term core values. It's all the pictures up on the corporate wall and it's just gotten ruined for us. But think of it as drivers. They drive our behavior. They are what make us do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I love that. Well, one of our core values at the Consistency Corner, and one of mine, is growth mindset and personal development. So I always love to ask our guests, what is a personal development book that you have read recently that you would recommend, or a go-to favorite?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know. I have so many books. Oh my God. I love all the personal development books. Shoot. Let me think about this. Honestly, I think I would recommend The Values Factor. John DeMartini. Yeah,
Okay.
it's fat, it's thick, but I walked my dog and listened to it on Audible, and it was fantastic. It kind of gives a lot of real world examples and helps you kind of think about your core values in a different way.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love that. And then finally, because we are all about consistency, and I will say consistent doesn't have to mean constant, but I'd love to know something that you are consistent with, either in your business or your personal life, that you're really proud of.
Well, I will say this too. I think it's a lot easier to be consistent when you're being authentic, because I am consistent in a lot of things if I'm being me. If I'm trying to be somebody else or do something like post to Instagram every day, which I don't want to do, I'm not going to be consistent.
Yeah.
So one thing I do consistently in my business is connect people to each other. People in my network who I think should know each other. And it's compulsive and I can't help it. I'm like, oh, you got to know somebody, or you got to know somebody.
Yeah.
And I think it's a dopamine hit thing. I think it solves a problem, and I'm like, ooh, dopamine hit.
Have you read StrengthsFinder?
Oh, I love StrengthsFinder.
I'm assuming you're a connector. That's
Connectedness is my number one. Yeah. Yes. And strategies up there, an activator. Yes. Yeah. What are yours?
Yeah. So strategies 1, communication, learner, individualized, and discipline.
I have learner too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when
I love StrengthsFinder.
When I think about that, the individualized, the learner, and the strategic, and the communication, like, that's all what I do.
Yeah. When you look at your StrengthsFinder, the top 5 all together, and like, now that I'm in a space that really fits me, I'm like, well, duh, of course, this is exactly where I should be.
Yeah.
But if you've never done the Colby too, I know we're done here, but this Colby A index is really, really powerful also. And that one shows you how you operate.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that one in combination, if you did StrengthsFinder and Colby, you'd have a formula for how to structure your business, how to structure your time. It's a beautiful blueprint for how to build a business that really works with who you are.
Yeah. Are you into human design as well?
I am. I'm a generator. What are you?
I'm a generator. I'm a 6-2 generator.
Okay.
And
I think I'm a 5-3.
The profile lines have been really interesting because the 2 is a hermit. And I never knew how much I needed alone time until I read that and learned about it and realized that when I don't have alone time, that my energy is off, that I just need that solitude. And I remember even because I worked in retail for years. And so I worked in stores, and so I'm with customers and my team, but I needed once a week either an office day, or I needed an early morning merchandising session where it was just me and one other associate, and I could go fold yoga pants and just be alone and process my thoughts. And learning that in human design, it's helped me make sure that I'm putting that on my calendar so that I don't burn out.
Totally. I think it's the 5 in my profile that means I'm supposed to get in, solve the problem, and get out.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned is if I get in and I solve the problem and I stay there and I keep trying to solve problems, I get burned out, I get tired, I don't want to do it.
Yes. And then your energy isn't there.
That about yourself. In the Colby, I'm a quick start. Which means I change directions a lot. I use the information that's coming in, and I'm not afraid to change directions and pivot and make adjustments on the fly. That makes a lot of people really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So it's been framed as a liability to me in my life, but it's not. It's actually a strength if you look at it, if you frame it that way and you know how to use it.
Yes.
And what to avoid.
Yes. Very cool. Well, I'm going to have to take that because I love all the typings.
Oh, do it. And then let me know. I want to know what your Colby is.
I will for sure. Well, this was so much fun. If listeners are interested in learning more about Ravel or what you do or how they can connect with you, where are you hanging out? Where can they find you?
Ravelcollective.com or carasteinmann.com.
All right.
Or LinkedIn, awesome. Of course. Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yes. And we will link all that in the show notes. And then you also have a podcast as well, Ravel Radio.
I do, Ravel Radio, and you're going to be on there.
Yes. So if you're wanting to pop some connectedness and all of these quick starts and problem solving in your earbuds, I think that sounds like a great listen.
Awesome.
All right. Awesome, Cara. Thanks so much for being here. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for it. I had a blast.